Two Ugly Nerds podcast.
Welcome to the
What's going on, guys? Welcome to the Two Ugly Nerds podcast. Shorts. Welcome to Two Ugly Nerds Shorts. This is a short. Even though I'm here, what looks like by myself, I do have a guest. I have Mr. Gerald here with me. And Gerald, and I might bleep that out. Why did I say your last name? Force a habit.
It is.
But
it's good. It's cool.
I have Gerald here with me, and you guys remember Gerald because we talked about how we would save the DCEU a long time ago. They clearly didn't listen to anything we had to say, and they did the exact opposite of pretty much whatever we suggested. So, yeah, screw that. You came on for something else too. You came on for two topics. You came on for that one, and you came on for another one. I thought you did.
I want to say I came on for something about that had to do with.
Was it Marvel?
I want to say it had to. Yeah, it was Marvel. I want to say it had to do something with Black Panther, but I don't remember what it was.
Maybe. Yeah, I can't remember. I know you've been on the main pod twice. I know it's been twice. I know it's twice. If you guys go looking through the archives, the audio archives, you'll find it. He's on there twice for sure. Gilks is who I go to make sure I don't sound stupid and bigoted. So because I could do that. I could do that. And what I think what people don't know is I learned a lot because what nobody out there knows is I just moved into your house and didn't really give you a choice. I just kind of showed up one day with my PlayStation, and you and Nick just were like, I guess he's not leaving, fine. and he just kind of kept moving. I think about that often. Like, I didn't ask, I didn't say anything. Like, we didn't talk about it. No one mentioned it. It just kind of showed up. And one day I had my PlayStation and was like, yeah, I'm staying. And I just stopped leaving. I thought that was great.
Couldn't blame you because that couch was like a black hole unto itself. So
that's a legendary couch. I hope someone saved that couch. I really hope that couch was able to, like, even after we had to let it go, I hope somebody was able to just walk by and pick it up. That couch.
The couch saved lives. It was really
no, literally saved lives. Shout out to Edwin. There you go. That's a Beta Insider. All right. No, so we're here to talk about representation in comics. It's this ongoing thing. It's an ongoing debate. I think part of it is a little silly, but I kind of get it to an extent. What's representation in comics? And I'm trying to simplify it because this is a short, but I don't know if there's an easy explanation for the question, because what is representation? Bumping up new characters? Is representation creating brand new characters? Is representation finally giving shine to old characters? Is representation race bending characters that are already popular? And everybody has a different opinion on what they feel like is representation. There are people out there who would love to see a black Batman, or not to say black Batman, they would love to see a black Bruce Wayne specifically. That would excite them. To them, that would be representation. To other people, they're like, that's stupid, that makes no sense. I wouldn't feel represented that way. You're never going to please everybody. That being said, comic book fandom world is fickle. Half the people that are probably going to complain about things happening in comic books probably aren't reading comic books. So when we talk about representation, the question becomes, is there really no representation? And don't get me wrong, I know it's hard for like black comic book writers. I know they have a hard time getting into those same rooms and being able to write their characters. I get all of that, so I'm not neglecting any of that. But when we look at who's really reading comics and we break it down, what is representation? What would make us all happy? What is there? Is it possible?
So I don't think it's possible to make everybody happy. That's just the way of the world. Mm-hmm. However, I do think representation can be boiled down to kind of what actually Stan Lee said about how he wanted Marvel Comics to be seen, which is the world outside your window. So representation, I think, to me, should be representative of a population at large. So if you are making your story, about somewhere in the United States, specifically a metropolitan city, depending on the city, you should have more people of color. You should have,
Mhm.
maybe more sexualities represented. You should have more women. Like there shouldn't just be one type of person on screen at all times.
Right.
So I think that's the easiest way to do representation, is just make sure, like if I were to walk outside right now, in my city, I wouldn't see one type of person up and down the street.
No, not in your city.
I would see, yeah, I would see a lot of people. I would see a lot of people of various.
Your city is super special for that. But yes, yes, yeah.
So I think that's the easiest way to do representation. It's just
100%. I get you.
Just show the population. Now, when you were running through your, I guess your list of what would be representation, I agree with most of those. Elevating old characters, creating new characters, positioning characters that were recently created but aren't quite old characters. Race bending is a weird case. I think in some cases I don't want to say it doesn't matter, but there are some characters who a race bend wouldn't affect negatively as much as other characters are affected. I will give an example. An example that I go to typically is Iron Fist, Danny Rand. So Danny Rand was created as a white character. He was created as, basically in my fix of the Netflix series, I described it as Danny Rand should be a mix of Peter Pan and Captain America. He's the kid. He's the kid that died, quote unquote. He didn't actually die, but he's the kid that he went to a mystical city, kind of like Neverland, and he was stuck there for like 10, 15 years, whatever. And then he goes back and he's a person at a time, like Steve Rogers. So, that's integral to his character. What's also integral to his character is, his race relations with Luke Cage. However, you get into the sticky situation of he is a white man who goes to a mystical Asian city, learns their martial arts better than they do, beats all their best fighters, gets defeats Xiao Lao, and comes back to America to do his martial arts thing. Like he leaves Kunlun high and dry from their greatest warrior. Like it's a story of colonization if you really think about it.
Literally.
So
little rough on the Iron Fist story, but that's
that's a super simplified rough draft of it. And he's not the only one. Doctor Strange did the same thing, and he's one of my favorite characters. He fucked up his. I don't know if I can curse. He broke up. He broke his hands. Goes to, in the movie, Carmitage. In the comics, I think it was just a generic city. I don't exactly remember where he went, but same similar thing. He meets an old Asian master and learns magic better than they've learned it before, and comes back as master of the mystic arts and eventually the Sorcerer Supreme. So to me, I think Danny Rand could have been made into at least an Asian American character, and not much would have been lost. Yes, he would have, he wouldn't have the white-black relations with Luke Cage and Misty Knight, but there's still the, an Asian-black relationship there that can be explored that isn't really explored in
comics at all, right?
Yeah, at all. Yeah,
or media. Forget comics. Media. I don't think people.
No one ever talks about it.
Focus on that. 100%.
And I feel like that would have been even more prescient because now we have, due to her role in the Shang-Chi, we have Awkwafina being kind of looked at as using
the black sense and everything. We just talked about that. We were just talking about that as well too with her, and the people criticize her for dropping the black scent for Shang-Chi and. So
there's whole conversations that could be had with certain characters being race bent. So I would say Danny Rand could be a successful case, if you worked at it. And you brought up Bruce Wayne earlier. I am one of the ones who don't think that Bruce Wayne could be a super successful case. I mean, you can do it, obviously. Like a lot of older white characters weren't created explicitly to be white. They were just,
Yeah,
that
that's
was
just
the
who was
default.
popular. Yeah, just
So
default.
like, so Bruce Wayne could technically work, but it's like, it'd be a stretch. Someone like Matt Murdock, on the other hand, who's like Irish Catholicism is very integral to their character, or Kitty Pryde, who is Jewish, like you're not going to get away with that.
Right,
and
right,
you
right.
shouldn't try that. Same reason why T'Challa shouldn't be race bent. Like that's the prime example that people bring up. Like, oh, well, what if Black Panther was white? Well,
Right.
no, because like Black Panther was explicitly created to be, because to be Black and a statement about, about race and
about race, oppression.
Yeah. So that's that's a history of Black Panther. All right. So that's just how I feel. Like certain characters can be race bent. I wouldn't suggest the majority of them do, but if you're going to do it, one, pick the character properly, and two, make sure you actually cover the subject matter properly.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said for. I understand the knee-jerk reaction as a company to say, hey, they say we're not being diverse enough. We write all of these Elseworld stories, what if scenarios, whatever you want to call them. We write all these different stories, all these different comic book runs. Characters go on a million different adventures. They die, they come back, they die, they come back. We write all types of crazy foolishness. Why can't we just write one where Batman's Black? Why can't we just write one where Superman's Black? Why can't we just make the Flash Black? Why can't we just make one of these characters Black? And I agree that maybe their roots for some of them isn't necessarily exactly white culture to the core, where changing it would affect anything. But it can feel a little cheap and lazy, especially when they don't do anything to update the story. And I think that's the part of race bending that bothers people. It's not so much that the color changed, but they don't do enough to change the story. Because I feel like if you're a fan of comic books, now don't get me wrong, you can not like a certain portrayal of a character through any form of media, whether it's a comic book, a regular book, a video game, whatever. You don't have to like that portrayal of that character. So that's fair. But I think if people could see things as more of Elseworld stories, just like a comic book, people wouldn't take things so personally when they see changes on certain platforms as like, this is ruining that character. That character still exists the way you remember it in all the media forms you remember right now. This is just this take, this time going forward, and it happens to be through this medium. Get over it. There's that side of it to me. And then there's the other side where I want the original characters too. Like I want the original characters. I want the lesser known characters to be bumped up. I would love for DC to make a Blue Beetle movie. Will it ever happen? Probably not. But that would be perfect. They could also make a Mr. Terrific movie. I've been begging for that for a couple years now. That'll never happen. But it'd be perfect. And it'd be easy for them to do diversity without it feeling forced, with characters that may not be necessarily A-list characters. These are characters that people are familiar with through other mediums as well. So it's just like, I do think it's a little lazy, but I understand it. I understand that being the initial push, but now it's time to start making these push for more original characters, or bringing the characters that were originally made and actually giving them the shine. We just saw with WandaVision, Monica Rambeau didn't really get the full shine we were looking for, and she's supposed to come back in Captain Marvel too, so that shouldn't be an issue. But that's the type of stuff we're looking for, is those type of characters who didn't really get their just due to be able to kind of come back and really get a shine up, not just make Captain Marvel a Black woman this time. And you know what I mean? Like that.
I mean, to be fair,
I respect that more, but I know, well, they did kind of, right?
I was gonna say, to be fair, Monica had the Captain Marvel name before Carol, so.
Oh yeah, that too, that as well. This and see, and so it's just a whole like, yeah. See, and that's why I don't understand why anybody gets mad really about any of it, other than the obvious ones where race plays a very key part in the character's origin. if race is such a key part in that character being who that character is, then you can change anything else. Anything else about that character, as long as it's still realistic that they're in that race. They could be a crack addict this time, but they're this because that's essential to that character. If you can, outside of that, why would we care about characters being changed left and right when we see it physically happen in the comic books that we read all the time? Like, we've seen comic books where people die faster than they should have died, like, or we're like, what? He got clapped like that, and you're pissed because now your favorite hero is done on page 3, and this is a 8-10 issue run, and your man's is gone. What are you gonna do? Like, keep reading. Figure. I hope he come back.
Like,
I don't know.
True. Yeah, I agree for the most part that it's. I don't want to say they're just stories because stories are important. They're how people relate to the world and each other and stuff. So they're not just stories, but at the same time, they're not. It's not life or death. So
exactly.
I think representation again is tricky, and it's tricky. Like you said, you brought up the point of Black. You said specifically Black, but also other like POC and sexualized or whatever, like not being in the room to make these decisions, not being in the room to bring these characters forward. Like a lot of the comic characters were created by white men, whether or not that character, like Black Panther, was created by white men. And that's not a problem. Like, I'm not saying, there's anything wrong with that, but people put a huge stock in his place in representation, but don't take that into account. Like, he still was part of the system.
Yeah.
He's a great positive part of the system, but it's still the same system that excludes other characters or makes it harder for other characters to come forward. And even though he was created, specifically to have that place in comic book history, he still languished for a while. Like, it was hard for T'Challa to come forward as a character until relatively recently.
Which isn't surprising.
It's not surprising, but I'm glad he finally did.
Right.
So I think we're also seeing a change in not only who is consuming media, but we're also seeing a change in who is now in the rooms, and we're seeing a bigger push by consumers to have more people in the room. So I think overall representation and diversity is going to increase, but we also need to be aware of making sure that we're keeping a positive outlook on things, or making sure that the representation isn't, as you brought up earlier, it's not just at face value. Like, sure, we have a Black character on the team, and then, they show up for a panel or two.
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
Every couple of books. Like, we don't need that. If you're gonna proclaim diversity, you need to have the characters interact. They need to have a major part of the story.
Right.
Which, to go back to my Danny Rand discussion, a lot of one of the arguments against it was like, well, then if you make him Asian, then he'll just be an Asian stereotype learning martial arts. And it's like, well, yeah, that's kind of true, but at the same time, due to him being the main character, he would have had more than that. So the stereotype is a problem if that's all there is to it.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, you're gonna develop more of a story around him, which is, it's the story is the key, right? It's what's behind it, not necessarily the graphic artist who changed the race or how the character looks. It's what's the story that goes behind that character that's gonna matter. Like, I think that's where people get lost. I think people just get caught up, and I get it. We're in a hypersensitive time right now. Like, everything is, especially around race and everything like that, it's just touchy. But like, if the story's good and it makes sense why he's doing the thing he's doing, and I get it if the story's not good and it doesn't make any sense why this character, like you said, like maybe he just was rooted in being Jewish and now he's just some Black dude from Queens, and you're like, yo, this doesn't make sense. Like, then we can complain, and I think that's a legitimate complaint. But just to complain because something changed without taking into consideration, like, one, it's not a permanent change. Most of these changes are like little things, like they're not always like forever. Hey, we're changing this forever. And even when they say that, we know that's bullshit. How many times have comics told us, yes, this is the new permanent Superman, this is the new permanent this, and then they change it in 3 years because that writer got bored or got fired. Like it happens all the time. So it's just weird to me, I guess. But I do understand what you're saying. The stories are important. Like they are important because they're like you said, how people relate. Like that is important. I get that. It's just that I guess how far the society is some parts of society, I'll say that some parts of society are taking it when it comes to making this such a big debate on everything. It just starts to feel a little bit ridiculous or like a little bit extra. It's just like, yo, this is kind of over the top now. Because at the end of the day, if a comic book, if they were to put out a white Black Panther comic book, I wouldn't like it. I wouldn't like it. I wouldn't support it. Would I necessarily be offended by it? I don't know that I'd be offended by it. I wouldn't be sitting at home thinking about it daily. But I just wouldn't go buy it, right? Like I wouldn't support it. And then like I don't know that I would gather people around to go protest the comic book, but I just wouldn't go support it. And for me, that would be enough. But I see people, they're like upset as if a character doesn't look the exact way or doesn't act the exact way that they expect them to act, then that means that that character doesn't act like that at all, and it's ruined the entire canon or mythos of the character. And it's just like, yeah, that overboard reaction to it, I think, is where I guess it sounds like I may be diminishing the importance of it, but that's not it. It's just it's the reaction, it's the people. It's the people.
I don't think you are, and I think what what needs to be considered is also there's been a change in how specifically superhero comics and Marvel and DC. There's been a change in how the stories are told, because originally, it was about the characters. You would have, a writer. We'll take Marvel. Chris Claremont was an X-Men writer for a decade and a half, 2 decades, whatever. Like a lot of the stories that classic X-Men stories were Chris Claremont. But recently, it's been less about the characters and like the continuity, and more about the events and the writers themselves. Like Hickman is writing the X-Men, or Slott's writing Spider-Man, or the stars have moved from the characters to the writers, and so people follow their favorite writers. They'll still follow the characters, but like there's more emphasis on like who's writing the story now and how are they going to put their spin on it. And so continuity is out the window, which can be good or bad. There are some things you don't need to adhere to continuity all the time, but there are something like without the anchor of continuity, then character changes don't make sense, or they're in a vacuum, and they, like you said, they can easily be changed by the next writer that comes along.
Exactly. They mean nothing.
Nothing is permanent, but everything's the same. This is how it is.
Yes. Yeah, I do think that's no, go ahead. What were you about to say?
I was going to say, like, all the writers take the toys out of the box, they play with them, and some of them put them back, but others just kind of leave them on the floor. And then the next writer has to come in and see what they can do with the toys that are still out or put back. So,
I will admit that, even though I lean the DC way, I definitely, you have to give Marvel credit for, don't get me wrong, it's not perfect, but their attempt to do such a large scale movie franchise with the MCU, I say attempt, it's a success. It's happening. It happened. I'm saying attempt like it's like they're still trying something. No, it worked. They made billions of dollars. Everybody's filthy rich. That worked. But with them going for that and establishing things like the multiverse and all this different stuff and making it kind of make sense. Like there is some like middle-aged mom who's never read a comic book in her life, and she's having this conversation with other moms. They're like, yeah, so the multiverse is like this, and my kid said something about 3 Spider-Mans. Like, that's a real conversation that's happening somewhere out there because of what Marvel did. So that's like, I think that's dope. DC just Well, you get it.
That's another conversation. That's another
You
conversation.
get it. All right. Before we get to before we kind of move into our more, I guess, more serious rooted part of this show, as a Black man, which would you prefer? Do you prefer the race bent characters that maybe have a little more popularity and notoriety coming into it, or do you prefer the new characters, or maybe the older characters getting kind of revamped up when it comes to representation in comics or comics media? Let's call it comics media, regardless whether it's a show, animated show, whatever.
Comics properties.
Properties. Yeah, there you go. See, Gerald smarter than me. I don't say that often.
I would say that I honestly would prefer, older characters who haven't gotten the shine, or to create new characters. Mm-hmm. However, I could see in some cases, like I said earlier, where race bending a character might make sense. If it was like the one white character in a city full of Black people, and his race never played a part in the story, he just was there, then there's,
right,
not really an issue with making him Black.
Right,
However,
right.
if, like the Danny Rand situation, there's always nuance in how you do it, when you do it, should you do it. So right. I think that should be the last resort.
Yeah.
You shouldn't look at a character and be like, okay, well, we need, this ethnicity, this minority, this, whatever. Which white person can we change to do that? You should be like, okay, we need, or we would like to showcase more diversity. Are there any characters, how deep in the Avengers roster do we have to go to get XYZ character?
Right.
Is there a character in the Justice League who could use the support?
Right.
And will we support them going forward? That is my biggest issue, is like, if you're going to bring forth, put up, race swap, whatever, if you're going to introduce minority character as part of your team, do something with them going forward. Don't just have them there, check off your box and continue. I'd say
I'm just saying, like, Lady Thor is coming to the new Thor Love and Thunder. So like they gender bent a character, and then now they're introducing her in the main movie universe. Like that to me, that's like forward action, and people were up in arms when they did that, when they announced that. Like,
yeah,
I mean,
and it was one of those things. Like, I think the comic book was well received for the most part. Like, after the initial "why is Thor a woman" thing, a lot of people did end up enjoying that story and do the revelation and the consequences of. So, like, again, if you're going to go that route, there needs to be some sort of address going forward. And I would say the biggest example of this is probably Cyborg for the Justice League. Like, in the DC, it wasn't the DCAU that did it, but it was like, that net, like in between when they did the DCAU and Rebirth, they had a couple films, like Tower of Babel or like those films that were like,
oh god,
a semi-continuity of their own, but then like they weren't part of the they weren't
those
part
movies
of the
are bad.
But they just chucked Cyborg in Justice League, taking out Martian Manhunter, which a lot of people have grown up with, take out Jon Stewart, and it's like, okay, but
what are you doing with him?
What was the reason for this?
Yeah,
but they've kept him there. They've tried to do more with him. They paired him up with
Flash,
Billy Batson a little bit,
and Shazam,
try to get that that young vibe going. And so like he's been in it. There was an attempt. We'll say that. Like they're trying to do something with
it.
And
then they ruined it with the actor too. So now, like,
oh, I wasn't there yet. I was still talking about the anime movie. But yeah, what they did with Ray Fisher.
You weren't even there yet.
I wasn't even there yet.
WB is such a mess. Oh my goodness. Yeah, no, I don't understand. I'm actually surprised they're like allowed to still be like a functioning business. I thought somebody was like sued their pants off by now, but I guess nobody could afford it. I don't know. They're unbothered.
One of the larger ones, so like you.
Well, yeah. Yeah, I'm sure they own probably a bunch of other channels and companies I haven't even thought of, and nothing that we do complaining about our little comic book movies is going to affect whatever their bottom lines really are. So they probably hear us and they're just like, yeah, whatever, bro. We're going to keep making whatever we feel like. You guys are going to watch it. They can get over it.
And the people will.
And yeah, no, it's facts. We will watch it and we will complain about it and then get over it. So yeah. Oh, there was one thing I was gonna say. What was that? What was I gonna say? We're just talking about.
You asked me if I would rather, as a Black man, a new character or a race swap.
Or a race swap. I
Who do you think has been a successful
I think I was
race
saying
swap?
the same thing. Say that again.
Who do you think has been a successful race swap?
A successful race swap so far. I only have one glaring race swap in my head at the moment. I'm trying to think of others in the past that I really liked. Or that made any sort of impact. See, that's my thing. A lot of the race swaps that were out there didn't really make an impact. You know, I liked when they made I hate when this happens. It's like on the front of my tongue and I can't. And the thing is like it's crazy because I can't say it, but I also can't. I'm trying to visualize it and I can't see it, but I like my brain knows. I don't know how to explain it.
The Marvel or DC? Let's try to do this.
It's definitely DC.
Older character, younger character.
Older.
Okay.
And it was and somebody was made Black. And I was like, you know, that's not that bad. But I think it was like maybe not necessarily a one-off. Well, you know what? Also, I will say,
I know what it is. You're gonna say Deadshot.
Dead shy. Is that what I'm thinking next? It's not. I don't think that's what I'm thinking of. That's funny. Oh, that is funny. Damn. Oh, okay. I'm not gonna lie. Here's a good one that's not technically from the comic books, but it's still good. And it maybe it's kind of a technicality, but I was okay with Tom Hardy being Bane in The Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises.
I mean, I'm okay with Tom Hardy a lot of the time. So like,
Tom Hardy can do whatever he wants. It's fine.
like it's fine. Like, but
yeah, Tom Hardy, I was okay with. Starfire and Titans right now. I like her. I like her a lot. I like the new Tim Drake in Titans as well. I like Black Tim Drake. All my stuff is recency bias right now from shows because that's what's like I've been force feeding down my brain. But that's what I can. I'm okay with the one so far. And race bending is a stretch for Starfire because she's not really a race. Like she's just kind of like
she's
peachish.
alien. Like
yeah, like they draw her as peachish or whatever forever. Now she's Black. Cool. It's all good. It's all good. She's a really good Starfire though, and I think her acting has gotten a lot better over the level. You can see not better, like she wasn't a bad actress, but you can see like it's like she's grown into the role is a better way to say it. That's the better way to say it.
I like that.
She's doing really well. So yeah, I mean some of those I something like that I guess I've been okay with, but yeah, I want to see the fringe characters come out. And you know what it is, Marvel. I feel like because I saw Marvel do it now, there's no excuse for DC to tell me they can't sell me anybody. Ant-Boy, make a movie. Why not? Because I just watched Marvel do it. Marvel sold us. Marvel made Thor cool. I never thought I'd see Thor being cool. Ever. I don't know. Like maybe I'm in the wrong generation, but them Thor comics used to be pretty heavy, bro. I don't remember people having them around. I don't remember nobody ever talking about them. You might catch some kids who had a Superman or a Batman comic here or there. You know, get some Flash, Spider-Man, X-Men, you know, all the big ones. Nobody had Thor. I don't remember Thor or Iron Man. I
Was
remember
it
Hulk.
up until 2008? Nobody really had the Avengers at all. Like, you
Yeah,
got Hulk.
the Avengers was really third tier team,
Yeah, like
right?
Marvel for a while was Spider-Man and X-Men.
Yeah, Spider-Man,
That was it.
X-Men, Fantastic Four. I'm not even thinking about an Avenger. What they avenging themselves? They got their ass kicked. I'm not worried about Avengers. What? We got Wolverine over here.
And then look at you now.
Come on. And now look at me. Look at me.
Household
Caring about
names.
Captain Carter and all types of what if foolishness. Look, I don't know how Marvel wrote me into this, but yeah, they got me caring about characters that I didn't know exist. I can with a straight face say not quite 10 years, but 20 years ago for a fact, I didn't know half these characters. At minimum half and probably more. I never knew who Shang-Chi was. And that movie was amazing. Loved it. Amazing character. That's what he's been doing. I'm like, yo, why didn't y'all make that movie 20 years ago?
Okay, to be
That
fair,
was
they did change him a lot from his comic book self. So the movie was, from what I understand of his character, like they could have recently done some things with him in the comic books, but like the Shang-Chi that I knew was more of a MI6 Black Widow, like super spy. He was a master of kung fu. Like that's not get it twisted. He is a master of kung fu, but he was less mystical about it. So I think they took Shang-Chi in the direction they did as kind of like a soft reintroduction for Iron Fist. Because if you listen, they talk about other heavenly cities and stuff. So like, yeah. I think they're setting the groundwork for a more mystical side of the MCU, as they've already set the groundwork for a more cosmic side of the MCU. So I think Shang-Chi, Doctor Strange, like I think they're pushing in that direction, with Captain Marvel and the Guardians going the other direction.
Oh man, that is a
but still, like, to be able to look at your character roster and say, okay, this is, we're making a Shang-Chi movie. How can we further our franchise going forward? Where are the gaps? Like where, like how can we fit him in without being redundant? And to be able to creatively say, okay, we can change this about him, still keep these elements, like make it work.
Yeah,
that's the MCU. Like that's a strength of the MCU, is to have a cohesive vision. If not, even if they don't have a definite beginning, ending, beginning, middle, and ending, they have a cohesive, like, these are the characters we're working with. This is the story.
Yeah, this is the direction we're going in. We're everybody that signs up knows that we're going in this direction. Even if I give you freedom to take it that way in your own way, we're still going that way. Like it just makes sense. Like I want to get into a Snyder debate. Meanwhile, at DC, somehow, for some reason, DC. Okay, Gerald. Now tell me if I sound bigoted or not. I don't think DC. It seems to be that the narrative is that DC Comics is announcing that these characters that they're announcing these characters' sexuality. Right? And so anybody who doesn't know, we're talking about Tim Drake and Jonathan Kent. So your two flagship heroes, male heroes, two of their, well, one of Batman got too many proteges, just say protege, but y'all know what I mean. One of Batman's proteges and Superman's son have both been confirmed as, well, Tim Drake is bi-curious, I guess, sort of, but Jonathan Kent is bisexual. They say Tim Drake is exploring, and I don't think there's been a new issue yet, so I don't think anything's changed. So those are kind of
I think he's open to going on the date, is what.
Yeah, that's what it is, right? Yeah, he's just open to it. They haven't actually shown us how that played out. I don't think that's happened yet. So that being the case, obviously the internet went into a frenzy over that, and it went crazy. My thing is, I don't think DC went to IGN or went to CNN or went to any, not necessarily CNN. I don't know if CNN reported on this. I'm just saying, I don't think DC Comics, the writers or whatever, went to any news source and was like, hey, just so you know, in our next issue, Superboy kisses a guy. Like, I don't think that was a thing. I don't think they did that. I think they wrote the story how they wrote the story and they put it out. And then the news sites pick it up and make it a story. And then people who don't read comic books make it seem like there was some virtue signaled announcement that this character is now a different sexuality or is exploring their sexuality or whatever the case may be. Now it makes it seem like that was an announcement, like it was targeted, like, hey, gay people, come read our books. There's a gay guy in it. Like, that's not what happened at all. The writers wrote something, put it out, and it became a story because that's what the internet does. It makes things a story that are really not stories. But it's not that necessarily. I don't think this is the comic book writers virtue signaling anything necessarily. I just think they wrote something how they felt, and now we've got this whole shitstorm of people complaining, people crying, and then people pushing back on that.
So I would agree for the most part that, they just wrote the story. They probably knew that there was going to be some kind of reaction.
But
and I would also say they may have put it out in a solicitation first. Like coming up next month or something, or the next issue. Like, so that may have been it. I don't quite remember, the timeline of how it happened specifically. But like you said, like they wrote it, it's out there. The internet made a thing about it. In terms of character sexuality, I'll start with Jonathan Kent, because both Tim and Jonathan having it happen almost back-to-back months, and with a Batman character and a Superman character, like it does seem a little
virtue signaling. I get that.
I would say on the nose. Like, it seems like, okay, well, we need one Superman character to be this way. We need one Bat character to be this way. There's probably going to be a Wonder Woman character. They're probably just like
it's almost like you can watch it coming. like you just know.
Happen. I mean, I think Diana's actually been confirmed bisexual.
See,
like softly. Like there's been allusions.
Or they'll throw us Donna Troy as something real quick. She's already in Titans right now. It makes perfect sense to just, oh, hey, by the way,
capitalize. Yeah. So I would say, like, there may be some, obviously there's some calculated risk when you take a character and add a non-heterosexual presentation to them. I will say there's less of a risk with a character like Jonathan Kent, because while he may have been created, a while ago, he didn't really start being featured in the stories until, I want to say, like towards the middle to end of the New 52, like maybe Rebirth. Like it wasn't
like end of Rebirth, bro. And like end of Rebirth.
Like, he hasn't been a featured character for that long.
No.
And so like he's a new enough character where this can be information that is still laying the groundwork for him.
Right.
Yeah. So Jonathan Kent coming out or being presented as bisexual, no clear problem there. Like it just is what it is. It's
you just have to take it, and if you don't like it, don't read it. But you have to take it. You can't say
Tim
like
Drake. Yeah, you can't say they're like pushing him a direction, because and he's also, isn't he like, I mean, like most of these characters are just teenagers, but like he just crossed into that age range. I think
they're like that 16, 17. They're kind of, or they're late teens, early 20s. That when they don't really say their exact ages, they kind of only tell us the characters' ages when they're in high school, and then after they're out of high school, they're kind of just always like 24, maybe, until they're like 50. It's one of those things.
Ambiguously young.
Yeah. You're like, yo, they should be 40 now. Like, no, 27.
Yeah.
Good old comic books.
Tim Drake, on the other hand, I haven't read a lot of Robin or Batman specifically, but I haven't read a lot with Tim Drake in it. I do know that he has had a on again, off again thing with Stephanie Brown. There's been some not illusions, but like, there have been people who have been reading Tim Drake as bi for quite a while.
Okay.
A while.
I thought
And
that.
when I say reading him, like, some people, it's just wishful thinking. Like, obviously, they're like, oh, it's a Robin, like, making gay, or
There's always going to be those.
There's always going to be the shippers, like they were shipping him with Connor.
Course.
They were shipping him with Connor because you
Oh,
have
yeah.
two young, attractive males, and obviously they can't just be friends. They got to do something more.
Yep.
Which is another different issue of representation in comics, which is, or not even comics, like media in general, is like the relationship between heterosexual men. But like that's a whole nother discussion.
Right.
So like Tim Drake has been around since what, like the 80s? Like I think it was 86, 88. Right? Yeah. It's like my age. Ooh.
Oh, I wasn't gonna say that, Gerald. But nobody was gonna know that.
It's fine. Nobody was gonna know. Who's gonna know? Nobody's gonna know.
Nobody's gonna know. Oh my goodness.
But so it's one of those things, like, he's been around for decades, and to introduce this into a storyline, at this juncture, again, to go back to our point, writers change, characters change, nothing's permanent, but everything's on the table kind of thing. Like, he might go on this date, he might not like it, or he might, like, who knows? Right. I don't think it's not quite the Iceman situation. It's not Bobby Drake.
Oh yeah.
It's, where they took years and years of, him being in relationships or having feelings towards women, being presented as heterosexual, which again, a lot of people read Bobby as gay or queer or questioning whatever, but it was subtext. Like, there's no, and if it was subtext, it was like super subtext. Like, it wasn't, and then they just like outed him. Yeah, they just outed him to his younger self. Like, how does that work with his older self? Like, that whole, the young X5 Jean Grey, the way it was presented, like, she just telepathically read his mind, and you're gay by now. And he's like, oh. Right. So, what do you mean? And there were some people who were like, well, she is an Omega level telepath. Did she do that? Like, was that, like, is that part of the story? Like, who knows? I mean, clearly Marvel wouldn't want to go that direction.
I was like, that sounds like a very dangerous route to go down, and God bless whoever wrote that story, because it sounds like you're asking for backlash. Like, I don't feel like you're going to win.
And Marvel would not do that, but there were people who felt, so strongly, their reaction to the way it happened, to Bobby being, his sexuality being changed that way, like, that had to be the explanation. Right. Which, I mean, they've already retconned Jean and the Phoenix once, so like, it wouldn't be that big of a deal to do it again.
That's what I mean. All this stuff can change, guys. We can just say, hey, that was wrong. That was a mistake. That doesn't exist anymore. And then guess what? It just doesn't exist anymore.
Like, that never happened. It was a clone. It was a like an evil twin or whatever.
Literally anything.
A meteorite fell and looked like me. Like, who knows? But I will say, I do, even though Tim Drake's been presented as seemingly heterosexual for the past 30-something years, to have him be open to going on the date and like seeing what becomes of it, I think is a better way to do it than just, oh, by the way, I've always been bisexual, just never came up.
Right. I just never said anything. So, by the way, just been showing up this whole time. No, I mean, I see. I guess one thing that I've been thinking about, and this isn't necessarily just on representation. A lot of it comes from criticism that I think the MCU gets as a whole. Some of it comes from even like some of the stuff we talked about with John Paul with the recast T'Challa stuff. I saw it put really well. Somebody said that basically the MCU is like Feige's own comic book run, It's just movies. And so it's his run. Like, let him do what he does. If he don't want to recast T'Challa and the people on the cast don't want to recast Chadwick and they don't want to put somebody else there, then nobody else is going to go there. And you got to trust them to be able to tell a story that will handle that gracefully and well. And if they don't do that, then we can criticize them for that. And don't get me wrong, I'm not against anybody. I don't want to make it seem like I had John Paul here last week and I was like, yeah, bro, recasting T'Challa makes sense. And now this week I'm like, you idiot. That's not what's happening. What I'm saying is you can go out there and say, hey, I'd like there to be another T'Challa. There's nothing wrong with letting that be known. When it comes to this harassment or when it comes to like putting people down or telling people they're stupid or they're idiots if they don't want another T'Challa or that they're being disrespectful to Chadwick Boseman's memory, look, none of us knew Chadwick Boseman. None of us out here talking. None of us knew him. So we're all respecting him in the way we feel is best. For some people, they feel it's... Say it again.
I said, I love when they bring up, he would have wanted. How do you know?
Yeah,
and that's... Do you have the note? Like,
did he talk to just you? He left you the note that said, this is exactly what I want. Like, we have old interviews and things that suggest things, but there's nothing that is concrete about what he 1,000% wanted. And if they do reach a place where they can recast him, that's great. If they don't, then what are y'all niggas gonna do? Are y'all gonna go beat up Kevin Feige? Like, what are y'all gonna do if they just don't put another T'Challa in the MCU? What are y'all? I just want to know what is the alternative. You know what I mean? Like, because if, like, say the government was just like, hey, the housing market's crashing, we're just not going to help anybody, everybody's homeless. I assume revolution is going to be the end result of that. What's going to be the end result if they just are like, hey, we're not doing Chadwick Boseman, we're not doing T'Challa again. Chadwick did a great job. We love him for that. And this is how we move forward with the story. And what if, and don't get me wrong, I get that we'd be missing stories and all that type of stuff. I do. But if they do that,
people would just angrily watch. That's what they would watch angrily and complain.
And that's it, right? We're just going to be upset. All right.
They'll be watching. You
Like
still get
Marvel
your
takes that
upset
bet.
dollars.
Like, I think Marvel takes that bet every single time. I'll take you being slightly upset about whatever you think you're going to be upset about. And chances are you might not even be that upset. And once you watch the movie and you see how we tell the story and you actually secretly like it, but it's still going to take you another 6 to 8 months before you finally admit it. Like, come on. Like, you know, like
I will say, like, that was my experience specifically with the Doctor Strange movie.
Okay.
He's one of my favorite characters. You know, I was
personal.
looking forward to it. And then, you know, we get the casting call that Tilda Swinton is the Ancient One.
Yeah, that wasn't, yeah.
And, you know, I enjoy Tilda Swinton. Like, I think she's a great actress. But, you know, their reasoning was like, oh, we didn't want the whole old, you know, Asian master stereotype. And it's like,
okay, not
okay,
to have the Asian master stereotype. So
okay,
replace
like
the
that's
Asian with the white woman.
right. Like there was other ways to do that. And then at the same time, you hear that. You also hear that they wrote out Wong. They originally wrote Wong out of the movie. So you basically took away two lead-ish secondary, you know, characters, two Asian characters, because you didn't want the stereotype. Which I understand not wanting the stereotype, but I was hurt that, you know, one, they race cast or they race changed the Ancient One, specifically from a minority to white, but then at the same time, you're like, it's like, oh, we're adding a woman. So like there's a different nuance of diversity there.
Right.
So it was like,
what do I
but
do?
Then you just erased another character.
Right.
Like straight up. And I'm really glad that they went ahead and found a way to get Wong into the movie without leaning on the stereotype. Because the whole reason they took Wong out the movie was because he was also like a stereotype. He was a subservient, like, you know, he was.
I guess I get that. They gave him a little boost so that he's a little more stand on his own 2 feet type of a character. But I will say it does feel a little forced sometimes. Yeah. Like sometimes he's talking to Strange and you're like, should he really kind of talk to the Sorcerer Supreme like that?
Well, Strange isn't Sorcerer Supreme yet.
Okay, fair enough.
He's not. Like he's an Avenger. He helped save the world. He's clearly a master of the mystic arts, probably the best of the masters of the mystic arts, but he's not Sorcerer Supreme just yet.
True.
And that's probably what we're going to see in, No Way Home and Multiverse of Madness is him finally growing into that, because you watch the trailer
title,
and giving up not all of the arrogance, because Doctor Strange, like Tony Stark, is a pile of arrogance, but there's got to be some humility for his actions. And he has not yet had that character growth that would take him to being the Sorcerer Supreme. But yeah, so like getting back to my original point, people are going to be mad about certain things in the movie, and it's up to that person to then decide whether or not they watch the movie, whether or not what upset them is worth not seeing the movie over. So for me, I wanted to see Doctor Strange on the screen more than I wanted them to adhere to a specific comic canon. When I saw it, I still think to this day that there were better ways to incorporate the Ancient One and Wong. I think Wong was done well, but there were different ways to incorporate the Ancient One as an Asian man and still have that whole, still have both characters. Or the way I would have done it would be to combine Wong and the Ancient One, but that's a whole different discussion.
Okay, that's interesting. And see, but this is what to me makes it interesting, because you see how you've taken the story that you were given and kind of were able to just kind of craft something a little different to get a different outcome out of what you're looking for the story. And obviously, like, it's a character that you connect with that, is a character you've liked for a long time. And, you have a deeper connection with that character. So you know more about the history and everything, and maybe what you can kind of freely change without having crazy effects. But it's just that nuance, that conversation. That's what I'm always looking for. Like, yes, obviously we want more representation and we want diversity. But isn't it also interesting for the studio to do something different? Like, should everything on the big screen just be exactly whatever was written in a comic book 30 or 40 years ago? I don't know. that.
I'm an adamant surveyor of no. Like, I would say no, because I can always go back and read that. Like, sure,
exactly.
There are, like you said earlier, the MCU's Kevin Feige's comic run, and we see from the very beginning that they've changed. They've changed a lot from the very beginning. Like, it has never been straight up 616 Marvel.
No.
There's a lot of elements of 1610 Ultimate Universe Marvel. There's a lot of elements of other universes that are put in there. There's a lot of original content that's put in there. So, like, it was never, we're directly translating these stories panel by panel to the screen. You'll get iconic scenes like the scene in Civil War where Tony and Steve like clash the laser and the shield. You'll get that scene. You'll
Cap
get
with the hammer.
Yeah, or Peter lifting the building off of himself in Homecoming, I think it was. When he faced the Vulture. Yeah, when he faced the Vulture. You get iconic scenes. You get some iconic beats and storylines, but they also change things. Like, Ultron was Pym, not Tony.
Right.
And Hank Pym wasn't introduced until Ant-Man. So, like, I'm good with the MCU in general and comic book movies in general, and media, whatever, however we want to say it. The production doesn't have to be one for one. I would not want to see one for one because a fresh uptake like surprised me a little bit. Like, I don't want to know straight up,
going right in like, oh, this happens, and then like, then
like, give me a little twist, give me a little turn. I like it. Like, so I would be, to kind of inject my opinion on the matter, I would be team don't recast T'Challa, and not because of anything about Chadwick Boseman specifically, but because it's a great story element to me. Wakanda in the MCU has just suffered, an internal civil war, pretty much. Their ideology of themselves versus the world, like, that's all been shaken in the Black Panther movie. And they're like, all right, we did it. We're coming together behind our new our new Black Panther, T'Challa, our new king. Sorry, he was already Black Panther, but like our official king again, T'Challa. Coming behind him, the royal family's back together, whatever. And then, unfortunately, Chadwick Boseman dies.
Mhm.
So if you deal with that in the MCU, like what does Wakanda do now? They just opened their borders at the end of Black Panther as well.
Mhm.
So now you have a country that, thought they were coming back together, thought they were stabilizing, but then this wrench gets thrown in. What happens to the royal family? Do they have the whole trial by combat thing again? Like who participates? Or do they
Right.
say maybe we'll revolutionize our government? Like there's a whole stories that you
Whole
could
world
do.
you can build off of just that, off of just an unfortunate event happening and turning it into a positive. And I agree with you. I think if Ryan Coogler could incorporate what the unfortunate event that's happened in some way and use it to influence the movie and flip it, he might you'd have to start putting him in one of those, like when we talk about like the great directors and produce, like he has to go into that type of bag. Like he has to be that. If he can take this and no Chadwick, and then like address like Black Panther actually passing away in the MCU and doing all this stuff, like yeah, you're in for like some. That's if he pulls that off and everybody loves it still. Yeah,
Right.
that guy is Ryan Coogler is that. I mean, don't get me wrong. I already think Ryan Coogler is that guy. Like he's super talented beyond belief. But if he's able to get everybody back on board with no T'Challa in a Black Panther movie, he's goated. I think he's up there because that's not easy. People are very aggressively on both sides of the fence.
And
Sure.
it's one of the few situations where there is no middle ground. Like you can't halfway
Nah,
recast
yeah,
it.
you
Like,
gotta kind of be on one side or the other. Yeah.
and it
Yeah.
has to be from get-go. Like I don't know. Well, I don't know how much extra footage they have of him like doing, like maybe like how Star Wars with Carrie Fisher had extra footage left over. They can kind of sort of,
Yeah, but
do
even
between
that
8 and 9.
wasn't.
Yeah, it wasn't enough. But I'm
Yeah,
saying like
it wasn't,
I don't
man.
know if they have enough to do that. Like so, where do you go? Where do you start from?
No, no. I think it's and this is why, and I won't give any. Well, I will give a couple spoilers. Why not? Go watch our recast T'Challa video. But slight spoilers. If you've been keeping up with all the Marvel shows and everything, obviously they've recently introduced variants, right? And so I think there's an interesting story element there. And this is one of the things I was talking about with John Paul as well, is the idea of you could have a variant from another timeline whose Wakanda has been destroyed in some sort of cataclysmic event, and maybe he's wandering or whatever. And because of everything going on with our multiverse and our universes clashing and all this kind of stuff, he finds himself in our universe, finds himself fighting, and finds that hey, this Wakanda is here, and he feels like he has a second chance to save Wakanda. That's a interesting way that you can do a new T'Challa that fits within the mythos of the MCU that we've been given without breaking anything too crazy. You're gonna have people upset or not upset, but I do think it is an interesting way to approach it. And I actually think you can still approach it that way, bringing T'Challa back while also still addressing your idea where they kind of have to focus on how does the country develop, because before they really even accept this potential new T'Challa, they are working on how they're going to move forward as a country. So maybe they're like, hey, we're gonna come up with this democracy. And this new T'Challa's like, well, hey, I'm actually T'Challa though. Like I know I'm not from this timeline, but I'm still
That's
him.
another
So like I'm the
another
king.
conflict right there. Yeah.
And that could be either an issue or just something that gets resolved or part of his character development. So I just think there's so many story elements that are around this. If it's done really well, no matter which way they go, it can be done really good. It just depends on how they go about it, and how they really
I really
step
like how this was
forward.
supposed to be a short, and we're at like what 40
Oh
minutes, an
yeah.
hour.
This is a two-part short, probably. Well, and that's look like I and that's why I put the disclaimer at the beginning that I just moved into y'all house and didn't ask or anything. I just showed up and put my shit down and was like, I'm here now. And I have a toothbrush here. Like, it's fine. Like, I don't stink. I'll go home and shower. Like, it's all right. I'll go to class when I feel like it. Like, yeah, like whatever. Like, no, but that was, yeah, I got fired. I got fired. I forgot. I got fired from Landrum because of that. I went back when Nick went back, and they were like, "Oh yeah, Nick, we knew you weren't gonna be here. Glad to see you, Derek. Where have you been?" I was like, "Well,
if you must know." So
I was
I
with
have
Nick.
a question for you. If you were given a character to race change, sex change, orientation, whatever, if you were given a character that you had to change one, like Marvel said, we need to change a character, or DC, or whoever, who would you change? What would it be? Why?
Okay, I'm about to do something on camera. I might get myself in trouble for this, but I'm about to do something on camera just because you asked me that question specifically.
All right.
Okay. All right, hold on 1 second.
Oh no, censor.
All right.
Tell me more.
So
Tell me
anybody who just watched the YouTube version of the pod here, of this short, of this 2-part short, when Gerald asked me who would I race band in the DC universe, there's only one answer. I need Black Dick Grayson. It doesn't make any sense. No, I can make it make sense. I can definitely make rich black dude in Gotham make sense. I can make that make sense. Like Bruce feeling a little, white guilt as he's looking for adoptees, and you know what I'm saying, the black family in the circus. That ain't really a hard sell. That's just kind of history, right? Like, yeah, I think Dick Grayson, Black Dick Grayson, man. It's Black Dick Grayson all day. I'm definitely going Black Dick Grayson. I can't think of anybody else I would race bend and or change it. I'm trying to think of another character I would want to change in the MCU. I do think it would be you know what? If DC, have you watched Marvel's What If? Have you watched that yet, Gerald?
Oh yeah, I finished it.
Okay. So What If was great, right?
Oh, for sure.
If DC was to do a What If, I would love to see the what, and maybe there's a comic out there that I missed, so don't judge me if I missed it. I would love to see the What If Batman was a woman. I don't know why. Don't care what color, anything. I just like if Batman was a powerful, if Bruce Wayne was, I don't even,
Bernadette.
female equivalent of Bruce? I don't know, but yeah, was Brianna Wayne, what would, like, how would that work? I would just be so interested. Like, I think that'd be interesting to see that play out. Like, she's just as rich. She was left with her money, like the exact same story, just Bruce Wayne, but a woman. I think that's interesting. How does she go about picking sidekicks? No, because I think it's a little different, right? Well, but you know what? No, hold on. That's a little more similar than I was thinking, though. That's not bad. That's a little bit more similar than I was giving it credit up front. I'm like, yeah, no, hold on. Slick. No, but yeah, I think that would be real. I don't know why. That just kind of popped in my head as something that would definitely catch my eye. I'd pay attention to that. I don't want to see what that was doing. Okay.
I can see that.
How do we end this? Do you feel like growing up when you were reading comics, you had enough representation? And put not hindsight, I meant as it, like, try to put yourself in the mind you had when you were a kid. So as you were reading, did you feel like represented? Did you feel like you could relate to as many characters?
So I think it's one of those things, like when you're younger, or when we were younger, because the conversation has definitely changed now. When we were younger, that wasn't a conversation that was being had. So there was no or at least, between children, maybe, maybe adults were whispering it to them, to each other. But,
Right.
growing up, like, you didn't have that conversation. It was just like, oh, here's T'Challa showing up. Here's Black Panther showing up. Here's, Black Lightning. Here's Static.
Mhm.
Like, you were excited to see it and you wanted to see it more. But
you
when
didn't
you're
really say
younger,
anything,
when you're younger, the magic is just that you're reading the superhero comics.
yeah.
And there's always a wish of, for me, it was always like, I wish I was Spider-Man. I wish I was, this X-Men, that X-Men, like whatever.
Mhm.
I don't think I ever wished, that a certain character was Black. And
Yeah. I think I have to agree with that.
But yes, I don't think I ever felt, again, like, it's what you don't know. You don't know about representation, so you don't think
We didn't know to look for it. Yeah.
In the unconscious level, that you would like to see more, but it wasn't over. There needs to be more representation. It was, you were excited when someone did show up.
Yeah, because I remember being excited for, like you said, Static, and like just like Static was like the biggest thing in the world to me. And I was like, yo, he's so cool. Yo, he's so dope. He's got these electrical powers, and he's just like he's skating around kind of, and he's floating like it's Static. And then when the Static show is off, and every other show I'm watching is basically just teams of white people, I'm like, damn. Or maybe some like alien looking dude,
Right.
some some extraterrestrial looking being. And then you're just like, all right, well, but as a kid though, like you said, it's hard to go full in that mode. I think I agree with you. I don't think I ever specifically saw myself like, oh, I wish Dick Grayson was Black. Yeah, I found myself saying, man, I wish I was as cool as Dick Grayson, man. I wish I was as cool as Batman, man. I wish I was as cool as Superman. Not, I wish I was like as white as them. Like I never cared about that. I just cared about like how they acted. You know what I mean? The respect
doing what
they
they could
garnered. Yeah, exactly. They have superpowers. They can fly. People love them. Girls love them. Like I'm interested in that. I like that. I like what I see. I want to do that type of thing. So I want to be that. It never really occurred to me, hey, they ain't really showing you that many Black men doing this. And then the first time that I kind of really saw it was John Stewart Green Lantern in Justice League when the show was out, to actually catch it. And really it was Justice League Unlimited, I think. I don't think I saw the original run of the first Justice League originally. We were poor, folks. We were poor. So I don't think I saw the original run.
But when John Stewart got with Vixen and you were like, hold on.
Yeah, and I was like, what? Black love on
they
screen?
Can do that? They're allowed to do that?
What? Next thing you know, they might put a Black gay kid in a show.
I was actually going to say that they did. One of the first times I felt like truly wholly represented as myself, as a Black gay man or a gay Black man, however you want to flip those adjectives around, they're both there.
Right.
Was actually playing Mass Effect.
Okay.
And it wasn't until the third game when you meet one of the characters, Steve Cortez, who is he's dark skinned. They don't really, you're in space, so they don't really have a nationality. He's Steve Cortez. He's dark skinned. He's just a normal gay guy. Like I would say Black, maybe Afro Latino. Steve Cortez, he's Black, but he has really blue eyes for some reason. But anyway, he's just this normal gay guy who works on the ship. You can form a romance with him if you want, But it was just like the fact that he just simply existed, and like
nothing extra about it.
Nothing. Like he had his storyline, quote unquote, was about how he lost his husband in the Galactic War or whatever. So he was like trying to move forward over that, and then that's how you can form the relationship. Like you help him get over it, and then you two get close. Blah blah blah.
Okay.
But it was the first time that I saw a character that I was like, that could literally be me.
Yeah.
Like working the console on a ship or whatever. I'm not out in the field doing shit. I'm not, a super soldier or anything. But like, here's this normal gay Black guy who's just like working the ship, and it was like, and that was an adult way it happened. So it's not like I was young. But even still, like, I'm an adult, and it hit me hard. Like, this is
No, it's like that.
It was literally like a breath of fresh air. Like this is great. Like this is me. Like
No,
yeah.
that's dope. That is really dope.
So I would say
Yeah.
representation matters.
No, 100%. 100%.
But it's not something that you can force onto people, and it's not something you can force people to enjoy
And to accept, yeah. I think it just comes from the if it comes from a natural and genuine place, then I think it'll work out okay. You know what I mean? Like, I think if you built a video game and you had some generic white dude as your main protagonist, and then towards like before you're, going to start announcing stuff, they're like, hey guys, this isn't going to get any brownie points. We should make this like an Asian woman now. I mean, go for it. But if it doesn't fit anything, then, what did that help? How did you help the situation in any way, shape, or form? It's just diversity for diversity's sake, and it's not going to make any sense.
So do you kind of want to push back on that it has to fit? Because like people just exist. So like,
and that's what it is. Oh yeah, I mean,
so when a lot of people say, and I'm not accusing you of doing this, but when a lot of people say they have to fit the narrative, they want some sort of like checklist of why this this Asian woman is in this specific place at this specific time, interacting with these characters in the story. If it's not set in a locale with Asian, whatever. But at the same time, like people can just exist in a place. Like you don't always need to go through a checklist of why this person is here. So I think there's a fine line to balance between, like you said, a natural,
you're right.
hey, this person's here versus this person is here for a plot point.
So then I guess it depends on the medium, because if it's like, say, a video game where that character isn't as crucial to your overall story, maybe I don't have to dive deep into anything. It's just a person, and maybe I mention one character trait about them, and then we move on from that character. Versus if it's like a book and this character is going to be around, I might need to I might want more background information on this character who keeps popping up. You know what I mean? Like, not necessarily because they have to, or not because they have to justify why they exist to me, but just because I'm curious. I just want to know. I want to know, like, how'd you get here? How'd you know what I mean? It's just like,
I'm gonna say,
just
how
like,
dare you bring up Cho Chang like this?
yeah. I mean, yeah. How do you get to the end? I want to know how'd you. Yeah, I don't think it's, but I do get what you're saying though. I do get what you're saying. That's not. I mean, that definitely wasn't my intention.
Right. Like I said, it wasn't like a, hey, this is what you're saying, but like just
Yeah.
a lot of people use that argument to kind of softly gatekeep why characters are where they are, who they are, what they're doing.
No, I think it's just one of those things where things can happen just because they happen, but you want them to make a sense to an extent, right? Like,
you want them to make narrative sense, but they don't have to make,
it doesn't have to be laid out great. Like, yeah, don't just, like, if we're in the middle of Africa and then I just turn the corner and there's like a Chinese restaurant and there's just a lady, and I mean, like, when I say Africa, that was that's probably racist because I'm black, but regardless, when I say Africa, I mean, like, let's say we're out in the middle of the desert somewhere, and then there's just like a Chinese restaurant building out of the blue. That doesn't make sense. Sure, it's a movie. Things can just exist because they exist, but that doesn't make sense. Like, I want it to, like, it should, hey, we're in a mall and there's a bunch of people around. Anybody could be here, tourist, whatever. Cool. Anybody's out here. You know what I mean? But if they're involved in the story, then we got to get a little bit of context to how you're involved, how you got into the situation, how you ended up here. Like, there's got to be something there. Maybe we don't have to dive deep if you're not a crucial character. But if you're involved in the thick of whatever the medium is, a book, video game, whatever, I would want you to, I'd want a little backstory. I want to know,
So representation matters, but context is key.
Yes. If J.K. Rowling had wrote 2 more chapters or 3 more chapters, we don't talk about J.K. Rowling either, but if she had wrote 2 or 3 more chapters about Cedric Diggory, maybe Hufflepuffs would have a cool, you know.
Ooh, that's a whole nother podcast. Oh my Lord.
That is the thing. I don't know if you've seen that going around. There's a lot of Hufflepuffs upset. They're saying Cedric Diggory is a hero, when in fact he's just a person who died at the wrong time. He just wrong place, wrong time, and he ended up dead. Whoops. He's not a hero. He didn't do anything heroic. He just showed up at the right time so Harry wouldn't die.
Wait. Was it? Didn't he help Harry with the egg?
Yeah, after Harry. Yeah, but Harry told him about the dragons.
True. And I'm just saying he helped. He did more than just die.
But also remember, he got told about the egg.
Don't do Edward like that.
All I'm saying, bro, Cedric got help with the egg in the first place, and then he helped Harry because Harry had already helped him. So Harry really didn't need this dude anyway. And honestly, if Cedric had never, well, Harry's name was the one that got manipulated to come out the hat. So I don't know, guys. Look, this was a DC comic books podcast, and now I'm somehow getting into Harry Potter
because you know you love it.
Because I'm gonna one day do just like a rant Harry Potter cast with like a bunch of other people.
Invite me, I'll be there.
Yeah, I'm actually, and one thing I want to do, if my podcast ever blows up and I can do nothing but make content full time, hold me to this. What I want to do in the streets, you know how like people walk around and they'll interview random women or ask girls if they want rides in their cars or whatever shit. All I want to do is walk around with my high def camera and videotape people with ravens as their Ravenclaw house symbol.
Stop.
So I can like just zoom in on it and call them idiots and then just walk away. No context. I won't do anything, but I'm not deleting your face out of any footage. No face. I'm posting everybody's face is getting shown because it's not that deep. It's just your Harry Potter knowledge sucks. You fucking movie watching only noob. All right, there we go.
And
read just like one book, and you would see it's not a raven. And then we can all just avoid this problem. And you know what annoys me, Gerald? It's the Ravenclaws. It's supposed to be the smart ones that don't. All right, man, whatever. Even in the movie, through 4 movies, they showed us an eagle, bro. Through 4 movies, they showed us an eagle. And then the movie where they actually are supposed to go into the common room, they change it to a raven, and they finally show us the house sigil, and it's a raven now because J.K. Rowling hates what she wrote, I guess. And then, just whatever, man. We don't like J.K. Rowling.
Retcon. It's that retcon.
Oh my goodness. I can't believe they did that to me. I dedicated my whole life to Ravenclaw. And she was just like, yeah, it's a raven now. Like, yo, I had personality traits built around this. What are you doing? All right.
Well, I don't understand why she didn't do that to begin with, but here we are. Like, you've named the house Ravenclaw, but it's an eagle.
It's just a name, though. It's just her last name. The house. The house is Hufflepuff isn't a Huffle. Gryffindor isn't a Griffin.
I get it. It's just I get it.
That's an eagle. Why did you raise me on this eagle just to rip it from me the second you put it in a movie? I don't get it. I don't understand. Like, why would you do that? Why? What's the purpose?
What was the reason?
There was literally no reason, Gerald. None whatsoever. And they did it anyway, just because.
It was a personal attack to you.
That's just me. Like, just me. Ha, fuck Derek. He thinks he knows something. Fuck that guy. Wait, it's just me, bro. I'm the only one mad. Like, no one else seems to care. It's just me who's upset about this. No one else is at all bothered by this. Because apparently I'm the only Ravenclaw who gives a fuck. But here I am buying all my Ravenclaw gear off Etsy so that I can get the right sigil. Yeah, I said it. I haven't been to Harry Potter World, and honestly, that's the reason. I've never been to Harry Potter World, and I don't want to go because I'm just go there and buy all that bullshit Ravenclaw apparel. For what? I already got. Look, I got Remus Lupin's wand right here. What I ever need to go to Harry Potter World for? I'm good, folks. My Harry Potter knowledge, my Harry Potter nerddom is satisfied without going on that fake ass train. I can get on a train off Indian Creek or something. Like Atlanta's right down, like it's fine. I'll get on that train and pretend it's 9 3/4. I can walk into a wall at Atlantic Station. I'll be all right, bro. I'm not they're not getting any more dollars out of me at that Harry Potter franchise.
Oh man.
7 wasteful movies, man. All right. So I got a lot of editing I just gave myself to do. Don't know when this is gonna go out, but hopefully when it goes out, you all enjoy it. It's supposed to be a short, man. This has to go out as 2 parts. It's definitely gonna go out as 2 parts because this is definitely over an hour.
Edit to your heart's content. I enjoyed myself. Like, I haven't had a conversation like this in a while. So
no, these are great. I told you all the time. Anytime you want to come talk about something, just message me and tell me, and we'll see if we can put on the pod for that weekend, because it's like we have good conversations. We need to have guests, not just guests, because we don't build our platform relying on guests. But when we have guests, we want ones that we know are going to come on with like good opinions, strong opinions, correct us when we're wrong on things. And like, who better than to correct me than Gerald, who's gay and can tell me when I say all the wrong things, and is going to also tell me how I was wrong about the comic book too. Like what other, that's like, you're literally an expert. What do I need?
I'm sure there are definitely people who know way more than me.
Sure, whatever. Fuck them. They don't. Fuck them. We don't know them. We don't know them, so we're not worried about them. We're talking about Gerald today. To this day. But yeah. Anyways, hey, I appreciate y'all for listening. Gerald does not want y'all to follow him on any social media, so don't even bother. Don't even go look. The only place you can hear from him is here on this platform. So I don't know what to tell y'all. I don't know what to tell y'all, man. I don't even know if I follow Gerald. I don't even know if I follow Gerald on all platforms. I have no idea. So, hey guys, it sucks to suck. This is the one guest that you have to listen to us to hear anything from. I don't know. Maybe Gerald will get popping and go do some other podcasts for y'all. But until then, y'all are stuck with listening to the Two Ugly Nerds show to catch this man's voice. I appreciate you coming on, bro. I really do.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Great, man. A lot of good content. So appreciate y'all. Peace.